Okay, you ready for voice number 5? So this is the pioneer. And you remember back to the beginning, this is the one that had the loudest decibels. And I'll explain a little bit what's going on there. So loving, cuddly pioneer approaches life with an anything is possible attitude. So for a pioneer, if you tell them, I'm not sure you could pull this off, is almost like the kind of red rag to the proverbial bull. Because for a pioneer to have their competency challenged is a deep violation of their very being. Because pioneers define their identity and their worth usually through their achievements and their capacity to do the things that most other people think are impossible. Brilliant at visioning and shaping a scalable future. And so therefore what you'll find is the pioneer voice is always enjoying the intellectual challenge of going, how do we win? How do we build something? And if we're going to build it, that has the capacity to scale, because the great cry of the pioneer is, how do I build something that gives us the most amount of influence in the future if it works? So sometimes you'll find that, the pioneer's leading a relatively small thing, and they're digging out these foundations that are like, as if a skyscraper is going to be built. And everyone's going, why are you digging those? And the pioneer looks at me, you wait and see. This is going to be huge. Now what you'll find is that the pioneer is already visioning. We're doing it in Atlanta, we're going to do it in Georgia, we're going to do it in the East Coast, the West Coast, we're going to go to Europe, we're going to go to Asia, it's going to be global, and before you know it, we're going to be opening an intergalactic franchise on Mars and Venus. Because inherently for the pioneer, the fun is, how can we build it, how can we scale it, how can we prove to the world the competency that is at the heart of the vision of wanting to win. Really strong, strategic, military thinkers. Pioneers love. Do you remember the games they used to play in the old war films where there was like a scale map where the artillery and the kind of tanks? Most pioneers function with this idea. How do I move the pieces around the board? How do I bring the Air Force, the artillery? A bit like a chess player. How do we move pieces in the right way so that we win? And that is almost what they do for fun. You'll find that teaching a pioneer to work is not difficult. The challenge for the pioneer often is to not be at work. And you'll often find the pioneer at home sometimes, even in the context of family or with friends, even though it looks like they're actually with you, their brain is still trying to compute, how do I solve that complex problem? The great challenge for the pioneer is often, how do I be physically, emotionally, and intellectually present in the relationships of my life that aren't necessarily task-focused relating. Brilliant as well at aligning people, systems, and resources to deliver the ultimate victory. That's that intellectual challenge, not just the pieces. How do people, systems, and resources come together in a synergistic way that allows us to achieve things that other people can't? Winning, as I said, is a massive driver. They hate to lose probably more than any other voice. You'll find that a number of them will often have that Roosevelt quote which says, I would rather fail while daring greatly than be counted among those cold, timid souls that have known neither victory nor defeat. And when everyone else in the team is like, wearying, oh, I'm not sure we're going to make this, it's often the pioneer that provides that kind of backbone that says, we are going to achieve this. And everyone else draws sometimes their strength from the sheer confidence the pioneer has that we will succeed, we will win. At their best, they help teams achieve things that sometimes even individual members of the team don't actually believe is possible. They're never going to give up. That's the most important thing to understand. Most pioneers would rather die trying than to actually admit failure. Powerful communicators, incredibly persuasive communicators, pioneer. They spend so long preparing the brilliance of their military, systematic, logical strategy. It's almost as they present it with this powerful communication, daring you to disagree with the brilliance of their grand design of how they're going to achieve things. So very, very moving, very strong, very powerful, very logical, very rational, very reasoned in their communication. Pioneers you always have to be careful with the pioneer, because at their best, they bring things that allow teams and organizations to do probably more than anyone believed possible. But when the pioneer voice is immature or doesn't behave well, they probably also do more damage in teams and organisations than any other voice, which is why we often tend to be quite challenging on them in this environment. Don't worry, they're only interested in being made better, so they're actually able to take a fair amount of challenge. But the immature pioneer often appears arrogant to everyone else in the team, often appears to have a very me-focused agenda. I often say immature pioneers, they've got lots of elbows, because they're always in their early career life trying to leverage themselves up on other people to make sure that they fulfill the potential they truly believe they have in themselves. And so one of their growth areas for Pioneer is always beginning to understand that people already see you as competent. The real issue for leadership is, are you prepared to prefer others over your own personal victory? Because the moment people know that the Pioneer actually is prepared to win through the empowerment of others, their influence will go to a whole new level. And lastly, the immature pioneer often struggles to truly value all of the other voices. Because they're so focused on how can we win, how do we get to the future, they're often very intolerant of anyone they don't think can add massive value. And because they don't fully understand what all the other voices bring, it's often only other pioneer voices with a hint of guardian perhaps that they actually hear. So that's quite a challenge to the pioneer, but it's also the way in which they truly get to bring their best to enable the whole team to be at their best.